A new tropical storm springs to life in the Caribbean. A powerful occlusion moves through the Great Lakes, and a negative North Atlantic oscillation pattern will lead to amplification of patterns upstream through North America into the Pacific. Plenty to look at today. We can start out taking a look at the jet stream at 250 millibars. The chart for this evening shows a very active jet stream through the North Pacific, rounding this ridge in British Columbia and descending into the Midwest, 120-knot jet flow through Illinois. And off of California, a cutoff low. This will have an impact on weather through the southwestern U.S. and the southern plains over the next few days. The surface analysis late this afternoon showed that very large occlusion in the Great Lakes, 995 millibars center. The triple point was located over upstate New York, temperatures almost 70 degrees around Matamoros, Pennsylvania. The cold front extended from about State College down the Blue Ridge Mountains and into Louisiana and Texas. North winds, but very little cold air on tap. 70s all the way into Kansas and 50s further to the north. But later tonight, we do have a frost advisory from the Kansas border up into Nebraska, and even a few freeze warnings between Sioux City and Omaha. Forecast high temperatures today look like this: 40s up in Minnesota and North Dakota. But of course, down in South Texas, continued warm south of that cold front. We had record high temperatures in South Texas yesterday, up to 97 at Del Rio and Laredo, and looks like a similar story for today. Minimum temperatures tonight looking like this: the freeze line from western Minnesota through Sioux City to North Platte and north of Cheyenne. Also quite cold through the Great Basin area. Lots of freezing conditions in the higher terrain around Twin Falls, and there's Baker, Oregon, down to 22 degrees. 45 for Seattle and Portland. As we head into the cold season, you've probably seen some of these diagrams of development of a frontal wave. One of the last stages is the occlusion, and this is all an occluded front right there, the main triple point right down there, and this region back in behind the occluded front, behind the cold front, that tends to be the dry slot. There's a prime example right now showing the dry slot moving across the Midwest into Michigan and the eastern Great Lakes. If it's not immediately apparent, you can go to the moisture channel, and now things make a little bit more sense. That yellow is an area of dry conditions in the mid and upper levels. There is a cloud mass in the center of that upper level low. That's a cold core low. A lot of that's due to extensive convective activity. There's enough instability and moisture in the low levels to get plenty of cloud material going, but still, that's partly within that dry slot. Now, if we keep in mind where the fronts are located, that's going to be the cold front, the warm front located right there, and the occlusion wrapping around somewhat like that, and the cold core low back there around Lake Michigan. So this here is the warm conveyor belt. The cold conveyor belt feeds around the comma head into the back of the system like that, and the dry conveyor belt right there from the southwest into the Great Lakes. And there's a look at those conveyor belts, the surface system right there. That can also be the occlusion, whatever part of the system is deepest. Got the warm conveyor belt feeding moisture and warmth, warm air advection that helps destabilize the atmosphere and also builds upper level heights. The cold conveyor belt, it's the opposite. It can bring moisture around the west side of the storm. And of course the dry conveyor belt, that's in the upper levels, and that is associated with subsidence. In that very unstable air close to the cold core occlusion, we have a line of showers and storms from Lake Huron to Sarnia and down into the Dayton, Ohio area. Let's take a look at the radar. The radar out of Detroit showing a line of showers and storms. The ecotop's not very impressive, but if you zoom in and check things out, you can see this outflow boundary right there, especially at the beginning, that's a good indicator of strong, gusty outflow winds. That's forming a kind of a 2D structure. There's the outflow boundary, there's the line of storms, and that extends all the way down east of Toledo and down into the Dayton area. Now, another aspect to this is the lake temperatures. Across Lake Erie, temperatures are in the upper 60s, and across Lake Ontario, they are in the low 60s. When you bring those temperatures in the 30s and 40s out into that area, that means rapid destabilization. It's not going to be cold enough for lake effect snows, but we will get lake effect clouds and rain. And you can see the result of that on the progs. Very showery pattern continuing for the next day or so. It's going to be very slow to clear out, probably talking about Friday or Saturday. And finally, that big high moves in. Across the southeastern region, not very much going on except for this cold front sagging into the deep south. Very little in the way of precipitation, just some showers, barely getting 20 dBZs on the radar, but some deeper convective elements from southwestern Mississippi into the Beaumont and Houston area. There's a closer look at that activity, very scattered. Looks like most of the deeper stuff has passed Houston and further up north. This appears to be the frontal boundary. And we're going to see a clearing trend in Texas. This frontal boundary will become diffuse, and most of the state should be under easterly flow. The next big change coming in from the Pacific, that's going to move into Texas around Friday. Across the northern plains, we're in the cold advection zone. We have a wind advisory across all of southern and central Minnesota and adjoining parts of Iowa, northwestern Illinois, and far eastern South Dakota. Northwest winds will gust to 45 miles an hour through this evening. Now, if it was the depths of winter, this would be an ideal location for blizzard conditions. But temperatures are in the 40s and 50s, so we're just not really seeing much except some light rain and very gusty winds. In the southwestern U.S., a lot of areas seeing clear skies. But here's some cirrus and altocumulus flowing across the California deserts and parts of the Sonora Desert. Now, what's going on out here? Well, we've got a Pacific system off the coast. To really look at that, we need to take it out west and zoom out a little bit. Now, in the visible imagery, you don't really see much, maybe a hint of rotation right in here. But take a look at the water vapor imagery. That's a bit of a different picture, isn't it? That reveals the mid and upper level low, and that will have an effect on the southwestern U.S. in the next few days. Here's a look at that upper level low on the 300 millibar chart, about 30,000 feet. That's going to be about 300 miles west of Santa Barbara. The track through tonight brings it onto the coast sometime early tomorrow morning. So we're going to have an increase in showers and storms, mostly on the higher terrain. Strong onshore flow will drive into Southern California, bring that marine layer inland, which means an increase in clouds and maybe some drizzle and that kind of thing. Anyway, this will move quickly inland for Thursday, and then the weather should quiet down in California. Increasing chances for storms, however, through the Four Corners area, and eventually this will spill out into Texas for Friday. And we head into the Pacific Northwest, a very nice day, but another frontal system on the way with that high EPO index pattern, the active Pacific storm track moving west to east. We did start out this morning with dense fog advisories throughout the Willamette Valley from Portland all the way down to Eugene. Also yesterday, Klamath Falls, Oregon, I believe that's in here. They dropped to 21 degrees, tying a daily record. We do have a mix of beach hazard statements and high surf advisories all up and down the coast, actually extending into California. There is a risk of sneaker waves as well. Those are unusually high waves that occasionally make their way onto the beaches and can drag unwary people out to sea. So that's going to be a risk for the next few days, and especially as this front approaches the coast that will be coming inland tomorrow afternoon. Let us head west into the Pacific, and we pick up the next storm system off of British Columbia and Washington. This will be a rather powerful one for southeastern Alaska. We have gale warnings all through the region between Anchorage and the panhandle of Alaska. East winds to 40 knots are expected, seas up to 20 feet. A high wind warning remains in effect for Prince of Wales Island. That's been extended across Ketchikan through tonight. Southeast winds could gust to 65 miles an hour, with high winds peaking overnight and then weakening on Wednesday. Likewise for Haida Gwaii, formerly the Queen Charlotte Islands, off of British Columbia. Environment Canada has issued a wind warning. They're expecting gusts out of the southeast ranging from 55 to 70 miles an hour. And check it out for yourself. Here's the afternoon chart, the warm front, cold front, and the occlusion. So that's the setup. There's Ketchikan and Prince Wales Island and Haida Gwaii. So we're going to see this area of very strong pressure gradients and rain showers moving inland overnight. And there it is, probably near the peak, 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. Alaska time, and then things subside. But the tail end, yeah, that's heading down the coast into Vancouver Island and Vancouver itself for tomorrow. So things could be pretty inclement down there around Vancouver and possibly into Seattle for tomorrow. And it remains quite stormy out through the entire North Pacific near Alaska. Very strong pressure gradients through Wednesday and Thursday. Another wave making its way onshore. So, yeah, quite a lot to look at in Alaska as well. The mainland part of Alaska, not really seeing very much, just a very slow cool down. Afternoon temperatures quite cold. That's partly due to that gradient. High pressure north, low pressure to the south, so that means there's a net flow from north to south. Temperatures coming into the teens and 20s, further south 30s along the coast. In northern Canada, we've got blizzard warnings for Resolute. They've been getting that wraparound from the Labrador Sea. That's a long fetch of moisture and warmth. Temperatures up to 30 degrees there. That's rather significant. And also Grise or Grise Fjord, forgot how it's pronounced right in here, the northernmost community in the world. I think that's north of 80 latitude, maybe close to there. They've got a winter storm warning for today, winds to 65 miles an hour and near zero visibility due to the same reasons, that wraparound of tropical air, very highly modified tropical air. Had to look that up. That looks like Grise Fjord. Greece, well, I'm getting a slightly different mental image. Hopefully nothing like that going on there. I'm sure they keep things pristine. Going south, not very much going on in Canada itself. Cool in the prairies, slowly descending into winter. And there's that occlusion down there in the Great Lakes. So we're going to see an increase in that precipitation as that approaches Quebec and the Maritimes. All right, about time to head into that forecast. We go into the overnight hours and into tomorrow. We're looking for a few storms possible across Arizona and the Four Corners area. I would suspect the best chances of that are going to be in the Mogollon Rim area and northern Arizona. Usually the higher terrain has the best shot of that kind of activity. For Thursday, this Pacific system starts crossing into New Mexico. We see increasing chances of showers and storms across Texas, and that will grow into Oklahoma and possibly into Kansas later during the evening. That's the result of that increasing warm advection. You can see those 20-knot winds right there at the surface. And with moderate instability, we're going to get a few storms capable of producing hail and damaging wind gusts. Let's take a look at that convective composite. Now, this is a very useful chart for looking at the possibility of convection. Typically, when you find an 850 millibar chart online, you find the winds, the temperature, but you don't usually find moisture, and when you do, typically it's relative humidity, which is not very helpful on a convective weather day. But I've got it here in the form of mixing ratio, and there it is. You can see that moisture working its way north starting Wednesday. There it is, the 15 to 20 knot flow. So this is the start of return moisture, and we've got the 10 gram per kilogram line right there that corresponds usually to 50 degree dew points. Now, this is up at 850 millibars, so it doesn't really tell you what's happening at the surface, but this is a good indicator of what's going on. So Thursday, increasing moisture, a little bit veered through here, so that may carry things a little bit further east than what we expect, but looks like it maybe backs a little bit towards evening. And we see, yeah, pretty much straight out of the south right there, but the better moisture has been carried off near Interstate 35 and just to the east. So best chance is probably going to be up in Kansas, where we have a little bit of backing of the wind, a little bit more southeasterly. That's probably going to be the 850 millibar front right through here. It's going to be a warm front. So overnight, low-level jet gets established 40 knots across Texas, and another chance for convection on Friday. This looks like the dry line. I don't think that's the front just yet. It might be the front. I'm looking at the isotherms. Now, they don't quite go very far west because you're intersecting terrain, but this could very well be a dry line right through the Caprock area. And then by evening, yeah, that's going to be a low-pressure center right there. The Canadian front is coming south. This, I think that's downslope flow behind the dry line. I don't think that's really evidence of the front just yet. So we're up to Friday night. Then Saturday, things move rapidly. Now I think we do have the Pacific front starting to move out right there. Low pressure up there in Oklahoma. The warm front is kicking eastward, and the moisture pretty much in the warm sector. So that's how that looks. So where were we? All right. Yeah, Thursday, the weather system moving out of New Mexico, entering Texas. Now you can see it combined with the fronts there. Another weather system moving into the Pacific Northwest. Wonder how many viewers we have up there. I know we have at least one in the Vancouver area. So we'll be stormy Friday night across much of North and East Texas, rapidly moving off to the east. The upper level winds are not terrific. We were seeing about 20 knots at 500 millibars, about 75, 50 increasing to 75 into Saturday, but they were out of the south, so that's kind of a unidirectional profile that kind of combines with the southerly surface winds here to give you kind of a straight line photograph. So I don't think that points to any significant severe weather chances, but I would not be surprised to see a marginal risk or a slight risk for parts of the deep south. Anyway, this other system will continue crossing the Great Basin, the northern Rockies through the weekend, and another Great Plains weather system for Monday focused on the Central Plains, and that will move out towards the Midwest, deep into 994 millibars in Minnesota, and strong cold advection once again. This could bring a significant amount of cold air southward. Look at that 540 decameter thickness line. That's typically associated with a transition from rain to snow. That gives you an idea how cold it is. We may see the 0 degree isotherm at 850, maybe down into Texas or Oklahoma, which is, certainly very cold for this time of year. But this appears to be mostly going to the east. So it looks like a very short-lived cold air outbreak for Texas. Here comes another Pacific system. You might as well take a number, line them out in the Pacific like the old barbershop. And that's going to be the last one I have. A little nor'easter there in the northeastern U.S. just before Halloween, and another system making its way out towards the northern plains. And that is the story, kind of pointing hands and fingers in all directions. I know I'm not covering everybody's area the way I usually do, but that's because things are fast moving. It's one of those kinds of days. So I appreciate your patience, and let's go ahead and close it out for today. And I realized I forgot to cover the tropics. We've got a new storm down there, Tropical Storm Melissa, heading west at 15 miles an hour. It will be slowing down quite a bit. 50 miles an hour on that 1003 millibar pressure. This just formed, or this became a named storm with the 15Z update, so late this morning. The forecast on the movement, let me bring that up for you. It is a little bit tricky. The European model has been taking that consistently to the west and a little bit slower. The current ECMWF has it arcing over Jamaica and over Guantanamo Bay and departing into the Atlantic like that, with the intensity being about Category 3 or 4. The GFS, much different, taking it pretty much straight over the Dominican Republic by Thursday and then out into the Atlantic. So NHC is splitting the difference until we get more convergence between the model solutions. And you can check out that GFS track here, moving aggressively to the northeast and out into the Atlantic as a full-fledged hurricane. Again, the European model going further west, so somewhere in the Central Caribbean we're going to have problems, probably Jamaica, Haiti, or the Dominican Republic or Cuba. Those are the most likely areas. Things are looking okay for Florida, but you want to keep close tabs until they get the path on this nailed down. And that is all for today. Very likely the Friday show is going to be on Thursday. I have relatives coming in from out of town, so unless there are last-minute changes, we'll see you again about 2 days from now. Special thanks to our new supporters who answered the call: CK, Zach Boca, and Tim Cairns. Also, a special thanks to Carl H. Watts for the generous contribution. We'll see you back here in a couple of days, and hope you have a good middle of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.